This is the Without Losing Your Cool podcast. We have entrepreneurs, climate changers, entertainers, and survivors turned thrivers. You do not want to miss a thing. Okay, my friend, thank you so much for being here with me. I got to tell you, I am deeply, deeply grateful for you because when I had all my books come out, every time I had something that I was doing that meant a lot to me, you totally stepped up to the plate and supported me. And I love you for that, because so often I feel as a woman, some women don't necessarily help pull someone up with them, but you're so amazing at that. And thank you. And now you're here on my podcast with me.
My only regret is that I wish I was there in person. It's just the schedule got so tight, and I was like, and traffic in this city. But I swear we're going to do is part 2, and then I'm going to be there, and we're going to be all cozy on that couch, and it's going to be a vibe.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Well, you're always welcome. And if you want to come back next season, I will totally have it, because I know that an hour is definitely not going to be enough time for us. And I think one thing I love about you and I is that we came to know each other through your job because of being on carpets with Yannick when he has to go to stuff. But for me, I was like, wow, there's so much about us that we run parallel, like with our health, with our wellness, with everything. Like, I just feel like I'm feeling something or I'm doing something, and then you're posting about it, with I got to meet Gina Livy through you because you were working with Gina for nutrition and health and stuff like that. And then, renovations it seems like you and I are always
renovating, right? Yeah.
always. So I love that we have this like strange, like synergistic relationship that was completely by accident because of Yannick. So I want to get the stuff out of the way that everybody, who's tuning in right now is going to be like, oh my God, it's Cheryl Hickey from ET Canada, HGTV, all the things. Tell me about how you landed here at ET Canada, for people who maybe are, living under a rock and don't know how you ended up being Cheryl Hickey, ET Canada, sensation, HGTV, phenom, all the things.
I'll give you the Coles Notes version because it's kind of a long story, but the story goes. So I worked at Global News, and I was a news reporter, but also their helicopter camera woman. Had a few different jobs. Okay. And I had heard that they were going to start an entertainment show. So I started to, ask around about it. And then eventually it became like, nope, they're actually doing this. So they auditioned a lot of people, and I was sitting in a pod in the newsroom, and I would see all sorts of beautiful actors and models and all these incredible people coming in and auditioning. And I was like, oh, well, this is not happening for me. But they gave me a spot to audition. So I auditioned, and it was great. It went really well. We had a great chemistry. Things were awesome. And then they said, thank you very much, but you're not exactly what we're looking for. And I was like,
no.
Cool. Yeah. And so, which is in this industry. And I think, that like, there are times when you're not what someone is looking for, because they're building a team and they're trying to, and they were just like, we do not, we don't want a blonde hair, blue eyed person. This is not what we want. And we don't want someone that people kind of know and they know you from news. So it's a no for us. And I was like, ugh, but I had so much in my brain started to prep myself for, I know I want to do something else. Like, I know I need something different.
More.
So I just decided to do, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I did the logical thing that everybody does when you are in a moment like this. I booked a ticket to Australia to see a boy, because that's what you do to go find yourself, right? I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure this out. So I did. And I was there for about 3 weeks, and it just solidified to me that I knew it was time to change. I didn't know what the change was, but I knew it was happening. So I came back to my news job, which I was very grateful for, and I loved it, and it was wonderful. And they said, we want you to come downtown because we want to talk to you about that job. And I was like, oh, they're just doing this as a courtesy. Because I'd been a part of the global team for almost 6 years at that point. And I thought, okay. So I drove down in a rainstorm, and I remember I was talking to my mom on the phone, and she was like, listen, I know you wanted this really badly, but just like be very straight faced. Like don't show any emotion. Just be like, thank you for the opportunity. I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay, thank you for the opportunity. Got it. Just be boom.
Yeah.
So I get in there and I get into this boardroom, and I can remember it was by the Eaton Center. It was one of those big buildings downtown.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
remember looking at the window, but like pretending I was looking at the person who was in front of me. And at the time it was Barb Williams and Zev Shalev. And I was just like preparing for the thank you for the opportunity. And then they just said, they were like, you know, we're grateful that you auditioned, and we'd like to offer you the position as host of this entertainment show we're doing. And everything just like, I kind of heard like beep, like everything just kind of went crazy. My body was numb. And then I remember at one point Barb was like, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, totally good. She's like, do you want the job? I'm like, yeah, no, yes, I do. And then she said, well, it's going to be called Entertainment Tonight Canada. It's the Canadian version. And your co-host is going to be Rick Campanelli. And like my whole body. I used to watch Rick while recovering from a night out on Sundays with McDonald's. So I was like, had like a little crush and like, oh my God, it's Rick Campanelli. So by this time, my body was just shot. I was like, oh, what? We're doing what? Like, what? Yeah. So I had
Yeah.
no idea. And then it was like we were shot out of a cannon. And all of a sudden there were CBS executives from LA in our
Yeah.
studios, and we were building a set, and you could still smell the paint drying. And we were launching it during film festival. It was terrifying because I was like, oh my gosh, I fooled them. They think I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Like also because
You're
I'd never read a teleprompter.
Well,
So
and also too, like, I
yeah,
mean, okay, for people listening right now, like, you've got to understand that when you're in journalism, a lot, of course, is improv. It's on the fly. You have to think on your feet, but also a lot of the stories are being given to you. And now here you
yeah,
are, Cheryl Hickey, young girl, only 6 years into your career, and you're
yeah,
essentially being you're the Canadian Mary Hart. Because I remember that's what I called you. I was like, "Oh my god, look at her." And it was inspiring for me to see somebody blonde, blue-eyed, in Canada doing it, right? Because other prior to that, it all been American. All the,
mm,
like, entertainment hosts, all the entertainment shows we ever watched, they were all American based and driven. So you really, it was trailblazing that you were doing that. I had no idea. So here you are
terrifying.
standing in this room being ready to be told nice, but not. And
Yeah.
then there
Yeah.
how like so what did you say to your mom? Because you must have left and said
Oh my
called your
gosh,
mom.
I called her right when I left the car park. It's like, you will
Yeah.
not believe this turn of events. And she was shocked, and she was like, oh wow, kiddo. Okay, so yeah, you're doing this. And I was like, yeah, yes, we're doing this. So it was a wild time, and our
Right.
whole crew, we created something really special out of the gate, and we still have some of our original cast and or crew on the team,
Right.
which is really neat. We've built something great, and now our team's evolved into an incredible group of people, and
Yeah.
the heart is still the same, which is great, you know?
So tell me, okay, because you've been there since day one, and how many years is it? It's got to be over 20 years, no? Because Yannick's been doing Murdoch
So
for
I've been
17.
with Global for 24 years now. With yeah, with
Wow,
with Chorus with Global for 24 years. Our show started in
amazing.
2005, and I was single
Wow.
when we started the show, and now I am married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, been through almost every life altering situation you could have
Mm.
whilst doing this show.
Yeah, and
So,
that
yeah, it's
that
it's every life event, major life event has happened here for sure.
and I love that it's such a family, and I happen to know that because of knowing you, but also knowing Roz, and something that nobody watching would know this is that our youngest daughter went to school for broadcast journalism, and she had to do an internship, and she was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. And she was also in university from 2014 to 2018, and there was a lot going on in the world, and
Mm.
media was changing a lot. It was the time of, Trump was president, and there was a lot of I guess media was just in the US, which is where she was in school. It was becoming something that she wasn't sure that she wanted to be a part of. So she came home and had to do an internship, and you were so gracious. You hooked
Mm.
her up with having an internship at ET Canada. And so I know through you, through Roz, but also through Michaela's experience that ET is not only is it a well-oiled machine, but it really is a family. Like you guys like each other, you get along. It's expanded so much from just you and Rick.
You know, the heart of the team is just like we love what we do. We're a family. We have
Mhm.
ups, we have downs. We've had moments that are, you know, all over the place, like any place and like any family. But we all really care about each other, you know? We talk to
Yeah.
each other outside of the show, and that matters.
100%. And that shows up on film, as we all know, if you're in the entertainment industry or you know anybody who is. So you touched on it very briefly about, you've been through everything that you can go through essentially in life over 24 years of living your life on camera. What would you say, of all the experiences that you've been through, what would you say was the most difficult? 'Cause you've been pregnant on camera, you've had newborns while you've been on camera, you fell in love, got married, and recently, and my condolences for sure, the loss of your dad.
Mhm.
Like how have you done all that while still being Cheryl Hickey, the TV personality?
Listen, I would say being pregnant was definitely challenging both times on the show because people are commenting and saying all kinds of things about your body because they're watching you grow a human, right? And I kept saying, and my stylist kept saying, you know, dresses come in all shapes and sizes. And that's the beautiful part about a woman's body is that's kind of what we do. We change. And so I got to do that on the show. Now, were there times when I was like hyperventilating in the bathroom in between takes? Absolutely. And sometimes I would have to take a nap on our lunch break. And there were certain things that I had to do, but it was kind of actually so weird. And this was, I swear to God, not planned. But someone was
Yep.
pulling a bunch of our old archives, and I just noticed that this is sitting on my desk. It says, "Will viewers watch a pregnant lady grow every night on TV?" And this was an article from the very beginning.
No.
Yeah. And
That's a
that's the crazy
beautiful
part. And you would
photo.
never say that now. Be like, of course they
No.
will. But back in 2009, it was like, we were still doing all the fashion and the beauty shots. But we were, I was getting comments all the time. And I'm just going to do this because I'm that person.
I love
And
that.
so there were a lot of comments and a lot of things. And so, yeah, I had to ride through all kinds of different seasons of my own insecurities and my own feelings, you know? But
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, like imagine I mean, you lived it so you don't have to imagine, but people who are listening right now and cuz and this is the really crazy thing, and I've it's been a common theme through my season this year, is a lot about how different it life is for women than it is to men, right? So here you are, you're a woman who's pregnant making a child, and the question is, are people going to what why not? You're still intelligent, you're still interesting, you're still like who you are in your essence. No, but men never get asked that question, as
no.
they're growing in being a father. It's phenomenal to me that you're talking about 2009. Like, you're not talking about 1959. You're talking about 2009. It's only 14 years ago. The fact that you had to endure that is just it blows my mind. And yet here you are, you handled it with such grace that, unless you were in your inner circle, you would never have known it. You still got up every day and showed up and were professional.
Mhm.
And the weight of what we as women have to carry while still smiling all the way along, it's phenomenal. Like, we're so strong and we're so
Yeah.
resilient and we're so magical. Like, I you could never pay me enough money to come back in my next life as a man, ever.
Well, I mean, I imagine there's a few benefits there for sure, but no, I agree. I mean, listen. It's amazing that we can grow a human, and that I got to
Yeah.
do all of that. But it was a challenge, and it's interesting. You know, the conversation back then. I remember being terrified to go on mat leave because I had heard of many colleagues that went on
Mhm.
mat leave, and it was like, no, 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 your job's secure, you're good, you're good. But then when they would come back to their job, suddenly that job had altered or changed and no longer were their services needed. So I remember talking with my husband when I was pregnant. I was like, babe, I can't be gone for 6 months. I can't be gone for a year. Like, there's just not an option. And so with Jaxson, I went for 4 months. And I remember thinking before I had him in my brain, well, I'm going to hire a night nurse and I'm going to listen, we did not have any of that growing up, but in my brain, I was like, I'm going to hire a night nurse. I'm going to hire a nanny and I'm going to go back to work as soon as I can. Da, 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 right? That was my plan. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden he was born and I was like, I'm never leaving my house. No one's ever allowed to touch him. I'm doing everything. And oh my God, I can't go back to work. I was
Yeah.
petrified. I was terrified. Everything I thought motherhood was going to be was not that for me. I had a form of postpartum where when I joke about I didn't want anyone else to hold him, I literally lived in fear because he was inside my body. I was keeping him alive. And then when he was outside
Right.
of my body, couldn't handle it. And I didn't know, now I know that was a form of postpartum, but even my mother-in-law or my mother holding and taking care of him, I couldn't relax. And it was an awful
Oh,
feeling. But I had to go back after 4 months and I cried every day. It is one of my biggest regrets. If I could go back and do it again, I would take
yeah.
that full year because you never get it back. But I was terrified all the way around. So I lived in fear for a good 2 years. It was really hard.
See, and I was gonna, I'm so grateful that you're sharing all this because that was gonna be literally my next question. Like, so here you are having the most beautiful experience and moment of your life. If,
Yeah.
and granted, let me go backtrack because motherhood's not for everybody and not everybody wants to be a mother and not everybody
No, for
has that
sure.
calling. And that's good too. But for you, you did. You're
Well,
in love,
no,
you're
here's the
married.
thing on that. Hold on.
What?
My clock was never ticking, and I thought something was wrong with me. Here's the other crazy thing
Mm.
for me.
Me neither though.
I knew I wanted kids, but I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, kids. But I was so just on my career, like loving
Yeah.
this ride. I was like, let's go, let's go. So my clock was never ticking. And when I got pregnant, we were actually pretty shocked because we'd planned on traveling and doing all these things. And again, like I was so not aware of the impact it was going to have on my life, like really, truly not,
Yeah.
that I've never loved like the love that came, my whole mind was just so blown. Couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, isn't it amazing? And this is another thing too, because I mean, well, Yannick and I got pregnant at 19, so definitely we weren't thinking about children. But even being that young, I was never that person. Like I'd never ever sat around and was like, I can't wait to be a mom. I want to have X number of children. I want my life to look like this. Like for me, I was always thought I was going to be an actress, that I just wanted to be a performer. I knew that for
Yeah.
certain. So, when I had Brianna, when we were faced with at 19 only being together for 4 months, we were like, oh shit, we don't even know each other.
Wow.
Like, what are we doing? Are we gonna
Yeah.
keep this baby? Are we not? And we opted to, and she changed everything. Like you're sharing, like changed everything. And we tell her all the time, like, you saved us, and you're the
Oh,
reason why, we
wow.
fought for our marriage in so many times when we were like, is this really going in the right direction? But
Yeah.
I can't imagine the pressure. I mean, do you feel like you had any capacity to enjoy being a new young mom?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
those first
good.
4 months, I did not leave my bed. I sat with
Oh,
him and just watched all the shows and just
yeah,
like sat and listened to him breathe. We went for walks and it was a glorious 4 months. The end of
okay.
it was terrifying. I remember the first job I had to do it was the Grammys, and I took him with me to the Grammys award. My husband came, and I remember breastfeeding him right before the red carpet. And I looked down and he had like bronzer all over his face. And I remember also that night I was very like crazy on the schedule. So I would wake
Yeah,
up, try to feed him, and then he needed probiotics because he had to go on antibiotics as a baby. And
yeah.
so I was giving him his probiotics one time in this hotel in LA, and I was so tired that I gave him way too much. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I've poisoned my child. I called what's poison control in LA. I was like losing my mind, like, oh my God, I'm not. Yeah, so it was a wild time. It was a wild time. But he was fine. It was just probiotics. He pooped real well. It was great.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, I think all that would have happened is he might have had some really good bowel movements.
Yeah. He had the
Okay,
scoops, but that's fine. Yeah.
he had the poops. Well, thank God he was little enough that you could carry him around and he wasn't like running around with it running down his legs as a toddler.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, going back to work at that
Yeah.
4 month mark was really hard. And I think this is something that I wish employers understood. You know, when women have babies, there is so much, it's so much more than just the physical part of having a baby. The
Mhm.
emotional toll it takes on a person's psyche, mind, everything. And then the hormones and the things that
Yeah.
are happening to a woman's body. It is so incredibly hard for a woman to come back and function at full capacity, sleep
Mhm.
deprived, hormones all over the place, just taking on a whole new role, a full-time job. It is another full-time job.
Yep.
And then you are expected to go back to work and pretend like that didn't really actually happen. And you shouldn't
Yeah.
be tired and you shouldn't be cranky. And I wish there was more consideration or I don't know. I just
Well, I
think that
wish it was.
we do need to do better.
Yeah, and I wish and this is the start of that, right? Like we're having these conversations and we need to have these conversations. Like in Europe, these aren't even conversations. Like not only do women get time off, but husbands get time off too, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the weight of creating human life is respected. And I feel in our Western culture there we've got work to do for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that you're bringing it up because it really is true. It's and then there's the added pressure if you're in a job like you're in where it's like, "Oh, wow, she didn't lose all the baby weight yet." You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like there's that pressure and that worry and that drives insecurity and then creates even more anxiety than you're already
Hmm.
dealing with as a new mom. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
So,
think there was back then, there was a lot of talk about bouncing back. I feel like we've come so
mm,
far as women and as a
yeah,
society since that time, which is really refreshing. And even after I had Nyla, I didn't bounce back to that. I don't even think I've still bounced back. That's not I'm not the same. And nor
right.
should you be. And I think there
I
was a
agree.
weird expectation. And, and I was a part of that too. And so time is gives you great perspective for sure.
100%. Without losing your cool, we've got your gift giving needs covered. Whether it's a holiday gift, if it's a support gift, if it's a little extra love that somebody in your life needs gift, or a parent who needs a little more guidance, advice, and the knowing that they are not alone out there in their parenting journey, we have got you covered. If you know somebody who is deepening their relationship to self, grab them the Self Love Bundle. It includes the Loving Yourself Without Losing Your Cool book, Loving Yourself journal that accompanies the book, and love notes for adults. If you have somebody in your life who's expecting or has a little from 0 to 10, then the Raising Kids Bundle is the perfect gift set for them. It comes with the Raising Your Kids Without Losing Your Cool and love notes for littles. If you have a parent in your inner circle who is heading into tween and teendom, boy, have we got the gift set for you. Parenting your teens without losing your cool comes with love notes for tweens or teens. You get to choose. All of this is available for you at chantellebisson.com. If you're shopping chantellebisson.com for the very first time, don't forget to add yourself to the newsletter to claim your shopping discount code. Go now. Okay, so so now you have Jax, you have Nyla,
Yes.
but ET Canada was not enough for you because then you end up on HGTV doing home shows. How did you juggle all that? Where did that how did that fit into the space of
Yeah.
being
I
the
kind of
host
feel
of the
like I
top end talk show?
manifested
Like,
that one. I got to be honest. I'm a big believer
okay.
in what you put out and I have always been a huge fan of makeover shows, but mostly shows that, do you remember Extreme Home Makeover? Remember that show?
Yes.
Every Sunday I
Yes.
would watch it with my mom. I would cry. We all would cry, and you would just
Yeah.
feel so good. So I
Mhm.
for years had always said, "Oh, I'd love to do something like." Anyway, and then just I don't even know what happened, but randomly I got a call from two of the incredible female executives here at Chorus, and they were like, "Listen, we think we're going to do this thing. Would
Yeah.
you like to be a part of it?" And I just remember sitting in my chair in my dressing room, staring at the mirror, being like, what is this world? And I was like, yes. And then immediately I was like, how? how are we going to do this? My husband travels. He's a director. I've got 2 kids. My dad's, not perfectly well right now. And it was
Mm,
just, there was a lot. And I was like, but I can't
yeah.
pass up this opportunity. So called my husband. He was like, nope, we're going to make it work. This sounds fantastic. And just the heart of this show was so delicious. And it happened the year before the world shut down. And still to this day, anybody who worked on that show, we're all so proud that, you know, we took all these families and we
Yeah.
renovated their homes that were ready to be, a lot of them could have been torn down, but they had such a safe place to land during the pandemic. Like I kept
Well,
thinking about them during the pandemic, being like, wow, we just got that in there right at the last minute.
and that's exactly what I was just gonna say. I was like, how incredible the way God works, right?
Oh,
It wa
yeah.
it was on your heart to do it. You brought it into being, and then all those families, they during what is arguably the worst thing that we've been through in Western, obviously, because we're blessed and fortunate we haven't had war on our own soil. So I would say that would probably trump any sort of being,
Yeah.
locked into our homes in that way. But thank God,
Yeah.
they had that place, and that's all because you all did that for them, and that's a beautiful, beautiful gift
Yeah. And,
that
and
can
it
never
wasn't
be
just
taken
me.
away.
I mean, it was all those HGTV stars that
God,
gave
yeah,
beyond themselves, took a chance on this show and did what they did. And of course,
yeah.
HGTV Canada, Krista Look.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, everyone took a chance and they did something really incredible. I mean, and then we've talked about doing the show again, but like in this world, this new world with
Yeah.
delays and so many families and just all, it would almost be impossible to do. Anyway, it was a gift. That show happened for a reason. It only happened once, but I'm so grateful that we did it and we got to do it when we did. I feel like we touched some families, and that experience
Mhm.
will forever be in my heart. Yeah.
Good, amazing, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a single mom, so, we were evicted from our home because my parents' relationship was really contentious, and my father had a new family, and he was like, "Well, I don't need to pay for this old family, I need." So,
Mm.
I know firsthand what it feels like to have no home, to have to go share a pull-out couch with your mom in a two-bedroom house with my grandmother. Maybe some people don't even have that opportunity, but, giving a family the gift of a place to call home and a safe place to land and commune is like, yeah,
That's
it's a huge
everything.
gift. It is everything.
Every
It is
time,
everything.
anytime there's a show, like I don't know about you, I'm sure you feel the same, but when Oprah used to do her show and she
Yeah.
would, take care of someone's mortgage or buy someone a new car, or it will be my life's work. And I'm going to put it out there. Somehow, someday, I'm going to do another show one day where I get corporations to come together and we just help people's lives in a bunch of different ways. And they'll all be
Mhm.
different. Some will be a
Yeah.
car, some will be a mortgage, some will be
Yeah.
just you need decorating. I don't know, but we're going to make it happen because this world is hurting and people need to see people giving and receiving.
Mhm.
We just need
I
to do more of it.
I love that, and I agree, and which brings me to a point that another thing that we ended up being aligned on, which I didn't even know,
But
was Kathleen Cameron,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
manifesting queen,
She's something,
and
right?
she's really incredible, which is why when you're speaking that, I'm like, "It's already done." Because A, it's already done because it's already done, but it's already done, and it's interesting because you and I share so much because you're speaking that, and I'm like, that for me too. I've felt like, "Well, how can I help people have some joy, some comfort, something that removes an element of pain or
Well, look what you're
suffering or
doing.
trauma." Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank
look
you.
what you're
Thank
doing.
you. Thank you. So talk to me about, because I know, talk to me about manifestation, because I know we share that in common, and how do you use it in your life, and how can you encourage other people to explore that ability within themselves?
Yeah, I know it sounds really kind of woo woo, I suppose. I really just think that even when I was little, I think my mom was talking about this before she even knew what she was really talking about. My mom's always kind of been that way. And then when The
Yeah.
Secret came out back in the day, I was like, oh my gosh, I found my spot. I was drawn to it. I was fascinated by it. And I've always believed that positive self-talk is one of the most important tools that we have as people. And I think that the more you flex that muscle, the better off we are, because I call it sloppy thinking. When all you think about is the negative, or all you think about is all the things that are going wrong in your life, as opposed to the things that can go right and are going right. I feel like, but you have to train your brain to do that. And so,
Right.
and then with manifesting, I just think it's really about choosing something that you want for your life, and then noticing the steps that you need to take. Like, things don't just fall in your
Yeah.
lap. Sometimes they do, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. But it's about checking and noticing that a door is open. Oh, have I done the work to get myself to go through that door? Have I prepped? Am I ready? And so noticing the door of opportunity and then being ready, that to me
Mm.
is a part of manifesting. So you have to do the work. You can't just expect everything to come to you, right?
Right.
But then when we were all locked in, all locked down, I remember that was at the height of when my dad got really, really sick and things were going bad.
I remember when
And
you
I
were posting
remember
about that.
thinking one day, oh my gosh, I need to get my mind right to ride this season. Like, I have to really get into meditating. I need to work out. I need to take care of my health. I was just very nervous about everything. So I was like, okay, I need to be at my best to manage these kids, my life at home, help my parents,
Mm.
do a show in a world that is changing very fast. And so I started to read a lot of books on mental toughness and some manifesting, and
Yeah.
just really kind of going within and being like, okay, what do I need to do to just keep this well? And that's healing some things too, right? So,
Yeah.
and then Kathleen, I started noticing some of the things that Kathleen was doing, and it really resonated with me. I think that there should be more people out there trying to help people live their best lives. And I think thinking positively is something we should encourage. And
Right.
why is it, what is it as us as a society that all of a sudden we're like, well, that's weird, when that should probably be the norm,
Yes. Yeah, but talk
right?
about that. It's true, right? I mean, it's like, and I had Arlene on, and we were talking about social
Love
media
her.
and how she left Twitter because she was like, it
So
just
did I.
became me too. I was just like, you know
Yeah.
what? And a lot of that came to pass because I was splitting my time between Toronto and LA, and it was the Trump era and stuff like that. And I just was like, you know what? And then of course we all got locked in, and all that was going on. And I was like, I want to quiet the external noise, because when the
Mm.
outside noise gets greater than your own voice, your own connection to self, then you run into trouble. When you no longer can hear yourself and all you hear is outside influence, I think that's when we stop believing that there's a better way to be, that there are kind people, more kind people than not kind people. I think we can get into that, on that hamster wheel of buying into negativity, because the reality is, how I choose to believe, is I feel like more people are doing good than are not doing good. It's just we don't see it. It's not
Yeah,
being
I
talked
think
about.
it's yeah, I think it's that whole, there's a crash over there, and everybody, you look at it because it seems out of place. No one's
Right.
noticing on the daily how nicely the traffic's moving and beautifully. Maybe you are for a second, but you're certainly not focusing on it. But if you saw a crash, that's probably what you're going to bring up in conversation at least 3 or 4 times when you get to work, right? And so
Wow.
you train your brain to look at the negative. And a long time ago, I started waking up every day, and I don't even know where I read it, but it's when you wake up and your eyes are still closed and you realize that you're awake, is when you should say to yourself, today's going to be a good day, because you're
Wow.
programming your subconscious to be like, I'm going to look for the good stuff today. And then as you get
Mm.
up, like, this is my morning routine. I realize I'm
Okay.
awake. I say, today's going to be a good day. And then I say 2 things I'm grateful for before my eyes are even open. It could be that my blanket feels amazing, that my dog's snugged up right against me, my husband's not snoring today, so that's great. Whatever it is, pop out of bed, I grab my coffee with the things I like to have in it, and then I sit down and I meditate for 20 minutes. Then I journal, and then maybe I read, and then I get the kids up. But I wake, and then I try to walk on the treadmill, but I haven't been great at that lately.
You know
But
what?
those are the things. I don't look at my phone till much later.
Me too. And you know what? People get first off, I love that morning. That is a beautiful morning. And anybody who's listening right now who's struggling with finding joy first thing in the morning, because a lot of us carry a lot of shit, right? The load is heavy and the load is different for every single person. You might be a single mom, you might be going through a divorce,
Sure, for
whatever you're
sure.
struggling with right now, implement any one of these things, and I say
Just
that
try. Just
just
try.
try. Just try one new thing that takes your heart center to joy, and it's not going to be easy, especially if, for me, I don't know why, but I had a natural tendency to, without knowing, subconsciously focusing on negative, and I didn't realize until as I started to journal and meditate and read books about it that I was like, oh my God, I actually am creating this world that I'm living in by focusing on these things. And
Right.
it's been a game changer. It's been a huge game changer for my relationship to self, but also to my relationship with other people, and it makes life beautiful. And we're here for such a short time. Let's try to get as much good, juicy goodness out of it as we can. So now I've completely lost my train of thought because you said so much beautiful stuff in all that you were sharing. But I think what I want to focus on and ask you about is, when you're implementing all these things, and you were saying about the treadmill, and do you find that do you find that you ever do things out of shoulds, or do you feel like you've slayed that demon?
No, I think I probably still have some shoulds. Those come in. There's times when I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up. It's too early. And I'm
Mm,
like, no, I should. But the should is because I know it's going to make me feel better. It's
right.
not should because, yeah, like I know that the days that I don't meditate in the morning, I feel off. I don't feel right because I haven't quieted my mind.
Mhm.
It's just, you know, stuff like that. Am I in a should? Sure. I mean, I'm in an industry where
I
you
know.
have to. There's some things you have to do, and so yeah, I'm still in a should for sure.
Mhm.
It also comes with people pleasing. I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah, talk about that. My God, right? So let me ask you another thing in your industry where and I've often wondered this about you because I've watched you through so many seasons. Were there any times where you thought, wow, this is it? Like I'm not going to get my contract's not going to get like for whatever reason, were there ever times where you thought it was coming to an end for you?
Sure. Yeah. There were times that I was told that for sure. I don't know if I should. Listen,
Well,
yeah, there were. There
And I
were.
I I asked because I've talked to, this season, interestingly enough, I've had Cynthia Dale on, who we know is Canadian icon, and she just finished a 3-week run on a play in May. And during my time of speaking with her, she's Cynthia freaking Dale, and she's like, "Yeah, I just finished the last project that I will do," because she's like, "Oh, I don't have any other part." So, and not in a defeatist way, but in a very way of just letting go and being okay with it. You know what I mean? And as
Oh,
women,
I see
like,
what you're saying.
you see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, we're faced with, and it seems to be a theme. Even Arlene and I talked about it. I have girlfriends who are producers, and we've talked about it. It's like the ageism thing that hits us in the face as women that men
Oh, I
don't
see.
necessarily deal with.
I
Like,
see what you're
have you
saying.
ever? Do you feel like you've been confronted by that in your career yet?
Well, listen, I was told by a boss at one point that I was not to mention my birthday because it reminds people that I'm aging. That did happen once.
Wow.
And I remember being really upset about that and
Sure.
being like, but we are aging. It is a gift. And I remember really fighting back on that. And that was really tough. There was a time period where not celebrating people's ages was not something that was supported. That is not the case anymore, which I am super
Yeah.
grateful for.
Me too.
And we are encouraged to talk about our lives and where we're at, and all of our, because we're all in different age brackets on this show. And I
Right.
think that's kind of what makes this really special, is that I think we are showing that you can have many seasons of your life and they all are important. And do I feel like I'm done? Oh, hell no. I've got so much
Oh,
more to
no.
do with this
Yeah.
show, but with other shows that I'm going to do. So, in terms of me saying I'm done, I'm not done. And I think it would be really bad if they said, you're too old to do a show like this or to do a show, period, because
Yeah.
women should not have timestamps. Men sure don't. And so, and this is the other thing that I think that society is getting better at, but we've got this thing where it's like, oh, people in their 20s will never watch a person in their 40s or never. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, since when? I loved when I was in my 20s watching stories about people in movies or in TV shows
Yeah.
or even talk shows that I would watch. Those women, when I would watch The View when I was in my 20s, those women were much older than me and I still
Mhm.
found it interesting. And so I think, I don't know who came up with that, but it's
Yeah.
actually not a thing. And there's
It's
so
actually
much we
not a
can
thing.
learn from each other also,
Well,
right?
that's what I was gonna
So,
say is, like, it really seems only in North America are we obsessed with youth in that way, because when you look in European cultures and other cultures, they honor their elders, you know what I mean? They honor the people that have gone before them that have the wisdom. They revere them, and I love that we're seeing that change,
well,
and
it is, but it's interesting. When I scroll on social media, I said this the other day. I was like, we see, and I also did this. I would always look for, and still do, mom bloggers and people that I'm trying to find information from, right?
right.
And then it dawned on me, geez, there should be influencers who've rode that wave talking about what they've done. I want to learn because, we talk to our parents or we talk to a
Right.
neighbor who's older and you learn so much.
Yeah.
But why aren't we as a society getting information from, so yeah,
Well, that's why I wrote my books. That's why I wrote Raising Your Kids and Parenting Your Teen, because I'm like,
yeah,
I've been there,
you've been
and
there.
I've lived through it, and you know what? I was able to keep a marriage intact through those difficult years of parenting. I was able to feed my soul and do things that spark joy in my life.
Right.
I was able to still explore myself as a woman, as my own
Mhm.
human, not just a mom, not just a wife. And that's exactly why I wrote those books, because I was like, damn, I want other women who are going through this right now to feel like it's all going to be okay. You
Seeing
can
someone who's
honor,
done it. Yeah.
because, and also too, I felt the parenting your teen book really came from a space of when Yannick and I were separated for a year, and I was out for lunch with a girlfriend, and she was talking about who she wanted to hook me up with. She had some guys she'd love me for me to meet, that I should go for dinner with, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. And so we talked about the breakdown of my marriage, the state of my marriage. Did we think that my marriage was going to reconcile? Who did I want to date? What was I looking for in a new partner? Meanwhile, both women, myself and the friend, had daughters who were cutting themselves,
Hmm.
and we didn't talk about it. We were
Wow.
both suffering as women, as who were mothers, alone, dealing with something with our children that we didn't know how to handle, we didn't know how to deal with it, and we didn't talk about
Right.
it. And that was an aha moment for me, because when we have little kids, oh, we talk about their swim classes and their this
We
and their
do. We
who,
do.
all the things they're doing and what they're going through and how they're growing and how they're changing. And then we hit these years
And
where
everyone stops talking.
everybody
And I
stops
think
talking, and
part
that's
of
when
that
we
is,
really need to
I
start
think
talking.
part of that is because, and I think certainly on social media, I don't talk as much about my kids right now.
Right.
And I'm very careful not to post about them very much unless they
Mhm.
approve,
Agree.
because I know being a teen is hard and they're
Yeah.
heading into that place. And I want to give them that space from me online,
Yeah.
because I know that that can be really challenging. Listen, I think it's great that we can all learn from each other when we're going through certain things. Like,
Mhm.
current mom bloggers and people. I think it's good to see someone going through it, but I also think we do have to look to people like yourself who've been there and to learn from. There's so much that can be learned. And talking to our seniors, they know
Yeah,
so much. And
so
I
much.
feel like just in general, we don't, as a society, look at our seniors and be like, wow, there's such a wealth of knowledge here.
Mhm.
And I wish that, I want that to get better.
I agree. I agree. And I just want to say that I love what you just said about your kids. And I really respect that you respect that they are their own people. And just because you're famous and you're on TV and you know, you're out in the public eye doesn't mean that they want that too for themselves. And I really, because we've encountered that with our girls because, you know, obviously our youngest has grown up more with a social media
Sure.
lifestyle and presence, but the other two, not so much. Right. So
Yeah,
I check with them all the time. Can I post this picture of you?
I
You know,
know.
and that's why I'll never say their names. I'll never tell you which daughter struggled with what because that's not my story. I'm their
For sure.
mom, and yes, I had that experience as being their mother,
Yep.
but that's still their very private story
Sure.
that it's up to them whether or not they ever want to talk about it. So I love that you're doing that with your kids. And
I'm,
speaking of seniors, you know, I'm going through with my father who's I've been told he's end of life now with his dementia.
I'm,
Thank you. And you know, I'm very blessed in that when my dad was still present, he and I were able to reconcile and heal all the wounds.
I
And so now
saw
that he's
that.
not
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. And now that he's nonverbal, I know that many years back we healed all that. So I'm in a good space with that. How have you been since the loss of your dad? And speaking of seniors, because I witnessed you getting such good time with him and having that
Mhm.
connection with him.
Yeah.
How's that?
No,
How are
we've
you
always,
feeling?
he and I have always had a good connection. I still believe we do now. Yeah, it was during the pandemic was really rough. Like it's been rough for a lot of families, but
Mhm.
he was declining pretty quickly. And this last year, I kind of, aside from doing the show, I kind of stopped going to events. I kind of stopped doing public things that weren't on the stage, to be honest. I wasn't even going to a whole lot of charity events that I love all the time because I was just conserving my energy in general for the kids and for my parents and for the
Yeah.
show. So I would say the last year has been pretty hellish. It's your dad. It's your dad, you know? And then certainly leading up to his passing was really, really hard. It was just after Christmas. And yeah, it's I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm doing really good. I helped mom. This is a funny story, but not funny. When he passed, I was like, I'm going to help you clean out the house, like get everything out. And I said, I can do this. It's fine. So you kind of flip a switch and you're like, I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
And I did it. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I had my truck loaded with all of his things and I was going to
Mhm.
donate a lot of it. Do you know I drove around for a month and a half with him in the back of my car? Not him in the back of my car, but his stuff in the back of my car because I
So him,
couldn't
his
let go
essence.
of the stuff. And then I stood at the place and opened all the bags and smelled all of his jackets. And I was like, if someone sees me, they're going to think I've lost the plot.
Oh,
Like his jacket he wore to my wedding and all those things.
wow.
So there's days where I think I'm doing really great. And then there's days where I'm not. Last week I was doing a live and I mentioned his name and I mentioned the type of disease that he had. And all of a sudden I could feel my jaw went numb and my fingers went numb. And I was like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
not done with this. So I called my therapist, and this week we've started back into therapy
Mhm.
because I'm a person who's like, no, I'm good, we're good, let's go. And then all of a sudden, anxiety will smack me in the face and be like, by the way, you're not done.
Yeah.
So I'm paying attention to those things. So sometimes I'm good, and then other times I'm just not. So, but I will say this too: what I've learned in the last 3 years through some of the books that I've read and the things that I've about positive mindset and thinking positively. I also have a choice on how I'm going to look at this and how I'm going to receive it, right?
Mhm.
I Now there are times when you just like have an ugly cry and whatever. But I'm choosing to remember all the amazing times I got. And I got so many years compared to most
Yeah.
people. So I choose to look at the joy that I got from him. And a lot of the time I I'm choosing how I'm going to look at it. Doesn't mean that I don't, like, obviously now and times
Yeah.
where you feel sad, but yeah, I feel like we have much more of a choice than we think we do, right? And how to see it. I see
Yeah.
as the time that I got with him as an absolute blessing. We got 10 days before he passed, day and night. We were there. We stayed with
Yeah.
him, my sister, my brother, and I, and we were by his side the whole time. And so that's a blessing. That's a
Mhm.
absolute blessing. And so, yeah, I choose to look at it that way, you know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I hear you. I get it. And I just want you to know that I feel so much of what you're sharing right now. And
Hmm.
I'm happy for you that you had that time, because a lot of people don't get to say goodbye
They
in that
don't.
way, and
Yeah.
it's we don't get to choose, unfortunately, how people leave us.
No.
So what a great gift. And it's interesting because my aunt's husband passed in December, and he was very much like a father to me, and I didn't get to say goodbye. And it's terrible when you don't get to say goodbye. There's so many things. You're like, when was the last time I talked to that person? When was the last time they knew outwardly that I love them? And it's really the greatest gift that we can be given when we're set to have to let somebody go, is to be able to have those moments, so that they know without a doubt they're not going off unknowing, so I think that's incredible that you did have that moment. And how's your mom? How's Gamby? Is she
Yeah,
good?
Listen, Gamby was an absolute rock and she's incredible. She's
Mhm.
held the fort for so long.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I would say about 3 months after he passed, she crashed, which is what happens, and I've come to learn. But she's doing much better now. Again, I just encourage people, if you're struggling, try to reach out to a therapist. We got mom into a great therapist.
Mhm.
It's so worth it.
Yeah.
We go and we get a tune up in our car, and we go and get, we go to the gym to get our bodies tuned up and get a hairdo and stuff. But when life happens and situations we've never dealt with before, why would we ever think that we shouldn't get a tune up in our mind to help us navigate it? So she did just that, and I'm so proud of her for doing it. And
Yeah.
she's doing much better. We went up to Owen Sound this past weekend to open up a library at my old elementary school,
Oh.
and I thought she was fine.
Mhm.
And then we got back, and she said, that was the hardest thing we've ever done. I saw your dad everywhere all weekend. I was like, right. So
Wow.
again, I think the first year is a first year of this. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, you're good and then you're not, and then you're good and then you're not. So,
Well, I think the thing that we need to remember, and certainly anybody who's listening right now who's going through loss and grieving, is that to have grace, right? Because you said it so beautifully. It's like we're in something that we've never experienced, and it doesn't come with a handbook. The start of life doesn't come with a handbook either. We have these children, and we don't know what we're doing, and
yeah.
we're winging it, and it's trial and error. And it's the same thing at the end of life. Like, these are two times in our lives where I feel like we need the most guidance, we need the most support, and yet unless you seek it, it's not there. There's no roadmap. So I think it's beautiful to remember that whatever you're feeling and wherever you are, just be in it. Like, allow
Yeah.
yourself space and get help. I'm such a big fan of getting help in therapy. And I think one of the really cool things about the time that we live in now is that, there are a lot of people on platforms that are experts in grieving. So even if you don't have the means
Oh,
to
yes.
hire somebody, there's just so much content that can help carry you through, celebrating and
Yeah.
grieving. So I love that that's the thing.
Mhm.
Would you say, because I know and I love this, that because I'm huge into biohacking right now, it's like I'm obsessed with it. Yannick and I are totally obsessed with it. Would
Me
you
too.
say that is that something that's new to you? Because I know you've always been healthy and conscious and stuff, but would you say watching your dad pass from a disease like that, would you say, did that trigger something in you to kind of get answers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head for sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, my mom was diagnosed with MS 2000, and I don't even know exactly when, but I've been hyper aware of how important wellness is, right? And then when dad really started to go downhill, I was like, okay, no, I need to have my act together. And I think that, preventative medicine is so important.
Yeah.
And I think instead of being reactive, I love being preventative. I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I think a good mixture of Eastern and Western medicine is a beautiful thing. I've got some great naturopaths that I work with. I think there's all kinds of different modalities that help you out. And so, yeah, I love reading and hearing some of the latest and greatest that's out there for sure.
Yeah, me too. And it's so important to understand is that, our genetics are our genetics, but they don't have to be the outcome. That there are ways that we can circumvent it by how we live and how we treat ourselves. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
there's,
it's great to know. I mean, I did some genetic testing, and so I know I have precursors and I'm predisposed to certain things. So,
yeah,
you
that's
know,
important to know, I think.
oh, for sure. Like type 2 diabetes runs in my family and have the genetic predisposition to it. So I'm mindful of how I eat in a way to not, trigger that genetic to kick in and have that, be the outcome for me. So, and I think it's really fascinating because what we're teaching our kids, right? At a young age
Yeah.
to focus their brains in that way because yes, we can have all the positive thinking that we want in the world, but if we're not doing it with action of how we treat ourselves and how we are nurturing ourselves, and it's, you can't.
Yeah. There's a great company, and this is not an ad, but this is like a genuine share. It's called the DNA Company. And
Okay.
so you do a simple test, and it tells you, like you said, it's your DNA, and it tells you, how you detoxify and what you're predisposed to
Yep.
and all those things. And I always think, my goodness, if we were heading out on a road trip, we would use the Waze and be like, okay, well, where's the bump here? Where's the traffic? Where's the slowdown? And now that there's a tool out there that kind of does that for your life, knowing if you're predisposed to something or if this could be in your pathway, okay, well, maybe I'll eat like this, or maybe I'll
Right.
exercise like this, or whatever I need to do, supplement with this. Again, I think it's just knowing your body inside and out and truly where you've come from,
Mhm.
where you're going. That's how you live your best life, you know?
Totally agree. Couldn't agree with you more. Okay. And I
Yeah.
can't believe we're like almost at an
And your
hour now.
hormones. Women need to talk about hormones more often.
Okay.
Sorry, I know we got to go soon,
No,
but
no, I love it because it's so crazy. It's just like, I feel like I'm going to become the menopause spokeswoman because I'm so crazy about hormones, and I just had a guest before you, and we were talking. Somehow we got talking about dry vag and stuff like that, but nobody talks about it. But where
oh my.
she's like
Okay.
in Europe. She's like in Europe. She would get up in London, and they were talking about it on the morning shows. They were talking about
Oh,
menopause and hormones and women's hormone health everywhere she went, and I was like, you know what? And again, it it upsets me, but I know we can change this, and I'm determined to change it, is that it all traces back to ageism. You know what I mean? Like women are not supposed to
I don't think
age
so. I have another
publicly.
theory. I have another theory for you.
Tell me.
I think that this all starts from when little girls are little girls. We're immediately told that our period's going to hurt, that it is a bad thing, that it's you that your hormones are going to be out of whack and you're going to be off kilter,
Yeah.
all those things. When the conversation should be, you're going to get your period, which means one day you get to make a human. You
Mhm.
you get to make human, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's a signal that your body's doing exactly what it needs to do. And that if you do have excessive cramping and stuff like that, then we need to look at why.
Yep.
That's how the conversation should be. But the conversation has always been be afraid, be ashamed, that from when little girls are little girls.
Yep.
So I don't think it's an ageism thing. And then when you are having of the age of having a baby, it's are you producing enough eggs?
Yeah.
It's again all in the negative. And then when you get to perimenopause, it's oh my gosh, oh I'm sorry. It's when really it's a rite of passage. You're
Yes.
getting the gift of aging, number
Yep.
one. Number two, you don't have to have your period anymore. And that it's your body signaling that things are changing. How great is it that you actually get a signal? right? So
I know.
it is all in the way that we frame it, all in the way that we look at it. I have a young little girl. We are talking about it much differently in our house. I'm like,
Love
this is
that.
a gift, girl. You are lucky because it means you can get to grow a human one day. And these are the things you're going to do to empower yourself. So I just think overall with women's hormones, we have to talk
Yeah.
about it differently.
I agree. I love all of that. Oh my God. I love all of that. And you know what? And this going back to another, Arlene and I were talking about, because we were such young moms in a time, my eldest is 34 for crying out loud, that
Yeah.
there were things that I put on them that, oh, I wish I hadn't, but it was put on me and I
But you
hadn't
just
yet
didn't know.
and I
Yeah.
didn't know. And I didn't know how to break the cycle. So I love that you are talking to Nyla in this way because I learned really late. And my girls were already like late teens, early 20s when I was like, you know what? It's awesome that you're bleeding because that's detoxification, which means your body's working. When you
Right.
don't bleed, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, and
That's
by then
right.
they were already like, Mom, shut up, my cramps, I want to die. Like it already had been put on
Yeah.
them. So I love
But
that
that's the
you're
other thing. If
changing
your
the
cramps are
conversation.
that bad, let's take a look at why. Like what's going on. Like
Right, and
those
I
are the
didn't
things
know.
that
I
yeah.
didn't know, and it was endometriosis for one, and it was, cysts for another, like, because nobody
But
told
why is that
me
happening? Again.
again,
Those are the
right?
things that
I
should.
know,
And the other thing is
I
when
know.
you go to the doctors, I feel like family doctors are so busy these days. But I
Yeah,
mean, if you've got a patient that's 35 and up, there should be some point where you have a conversation and be like, "Hey, these are the things that could be coming down the pipe for you potentially
yeah,
if after 35. When any of those things start to signal, can you let me know because we can have a plan." Like
yeah,
those are the conversations that you wish would happen and they don't. And
yeah,
instead it's this big scary crazy thing that yeah.
yeah,
We just there needs to be a lot less negativity around women's health
yeah.
and more empowerment and understanding, I think.
Yeah. And to everything you said, it is a blessing to age, and we need to celebrate it. And we need to look to the women who are ahead of us and like pick their brains and ask them, how did you do it? How can we do it differently? And, I was so grateful in my early 40s to get, while I was heading into perimenopause, to get on bioidentical hormones. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
to get ahead of it, to ask the questions, to figure out how to go through it in a way that was celebratory and not dreaded. You know what I mean? And like, you
That's
will
great.
never hear me complain that I never have to pack another tampon. You will never hear me say, "Oh, geez, I could be pregnant this month." No, free sex, no tampons. I'm living my best life. Orgasms are amazing. I just want to
Oh
tell
my god.
you all the things. Like, honestly, like, but these are the conversations, these are the things to look forward to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there just needs to be different conversations for sure in and around women's health. And I think, Oprah having that big symposium that she did not too long ago with Drew
Mhm.
Barrymore and a few other women,
Right.
that was really, really important. But there needs to be more of that. And I know there's a few doctors and people in Toronto who are talking about having some symposiums and really getting, women
Yeah.
together and being like, no, we're going to change this narrative. We're going to talk about this differently. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And this is the great thing too, right? It's positive thinking, but the power to understand that we have the choice and the power to change the conversation. So I thank you so much for coming on with me and being a part of the change. Like really, this was really an
Aw.
awesome conversation. I respect you. I'm so grateful that you came
Aw,
on
me too.
and squeezed me
George
in.
things, but I can't wait to be there in person and snuggle that dog, and then we'll just make it into a 2 hour. It'll be great.
We're gonna go Joe Rogan next season. Everybody's gonna be in the house and it's just gonna go on and on and on. There'll be no
Woo!
cutoff.
There you go. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe.
Oh, Joe.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. This was great.
I'm so grateful you joined in on this conversation. Subscribe where you're listening, leave a comment, connect with us on social media for more, and all the links, you can find them in the show notes. We will see you at the next one.